today to discuss the issues surrounding the proscription of IPOB.
Yes.
Yes, first I'd like to know from you if you think that IPOB, the indigenous people of Biafra, should be considered a terrorist group. Are they under the cover of Biafra? Do you think that's...
Well, my opinion, I've expressed opinion on this matter on social media. What makes an organization a terrorist group or not depends on the objective of and the activities of the organization. The federal government has stated reasons why it took those steps to proscribe IPOB. And well, we are all alive in Nigeria. We've seen and heard certain utterances of their leader, Nnamdi Kanu, which has been he has expressed some violent tendencies to overawe the country, to bloodshed, asking for ammunition and all that. But the particular incident that that snowballed into this proscription was not really directly connected with that. But just to answer your question, I think it depends on which side you're looking at it. I personally think that the Igbos, the Igbo people, they are not a terrorist organization, but the activities and the utterances of Nnamdi Kanu as IPOB, we'll try and distinguish between the Igbos and this organization called IPOB, has been warranted that proscription. So yes, I think the federal government was justified to nip that in the bud. I think they were justified.
So the federal government didn't just... It would have been easier if the federal government had singled out Nnamdi Kanu because he was the one who made this statement.
Yes.
But to identify the whole group.
Yes.
You know that this group has branches in Spain and in the UK. To identify this entire group and all the branches all over the world as a terrorist organization, is that appropriate?
Well, there is not a single country that would have tolerated in their own country the sort of utterances. I mean, we watched during the Igbo Congress, the World Igbo Congress in America, I think that was 2015 or thereabout, that he was openly asking for arms to come fight in Nigeria. We've watched his interviews where he has said that blood will flow if they don't give Biafra, he's going to do this. I mean, no single country, and he didn't do it as an individual. He is representing a group, and it is this group that has been proscribed. The federal government did not say that the Igbos are terrorist organizations. And I want to say, the law, the Terrorism Prevention Act, is very specific about what is terrorism. It's not only when you carry arms. If you threaten to overawe the government with arms, if you threaten, it is also considered terrorism under the Act. So that's Nigerian law. So within the context of Nigerian law, they were justified for that group. Don't forget, these are not the only group that is agitating for Biafra. You have the MASOB, you have, but the federal government did not declare the MASOB as it's IPOB, and it's very specific.
But why is this coming now?
Yes.
This is not the first time he will be issuing provocative statements.
Yes.
This is not the first time he'll be making very verbal
But this is the
attacks.
first time he's doing it in Nigeria. He's always been in the UK. He's always been in the UK running Radio Biafra. Now, listen, the way I see this thing, right, people are trying to make, okay, let's even look at the agitation, for example. Now, under international law, secession, the right to self-determination by minorities, the word people has not been described, has not been defined in international law, but it's usually used in the context of people that are occupied, an occupied territory by a foreign force, an occupied territory. Minorities are rarely used are really considered, minorities are really considered as a people that are entitled to self-determination, except they have been technically disenfranchised in the country that they're in. You can barely describe the Igbos in Nigeria as a minority group. You can barely. I mean, from after the war, and I will say this very, very, very clearly, the world over, there is not a single country that secessionists has been reintegrated into society as quickly as the Igbos have been after a civil war, as quickly as the Igbos have been after the Biafran War. There's not a single country. As soon as the Biafran War finished, you forgot we had the 1978 Constitutional Conference. You had the Igbos participating in it. Even Ojukwu, but 1979, by the time we had the general election, who was the vice president of the country? It was an Igbo man. And that was barely 10 years after the Civil War. Now, Ojukwu came back in 1982. The first thing he did was to contest for Senate for the Republic of Nigeria, right? And he was fully integrated. Babangida took over, and Ibitu Kiwe was his deputy. It was not a Yoruba man that was deputy. The second in command was an Igbo person. And this was still after the Civil War. Now, when in all the tyrannical regimes, Babangida came, when Abiola won the election ostensibly, and Babangida needed to truncate that process. To whom did he look? It was to Atonzeribe, who, Association of Better Life, went to court and stopped the whole process. What tribe was Atonzeribe? He was an Igbo man. When Abacha wanted to transmute into a civilian president, who were the people who were at the forefront? You had Ato Eze, who came out and said, if Abacha is not president, he's going to die. He said it. He said, I will kill myself. Who organized the 1 million man march in Abuja to say if it's not Abacha, then the whole place will collapse? It was a Kanu, incidentally, another Kanu, an Igbo person, you know. Obasanjo came in and you know, Igbos were treated well. They were in government everywhere. And Jonathan came in, they were basically controlling the economy, basically controlling the government. Only during 2015 that we now started talking about marginalization. That's not how it works. You cannot say that they are a disenfranchised group. They have 5 states. Each of these states have governors. These are not a disenfranchised group. These are people who are, it's only that this government does not favor. And do not forget, if you say they are killing Igbos everywhere, in Nigeria, you know, Igbos are not worse off than any other tribe. We are all killed. You know, El Zaki, who was, his group was brutalized, are not Igbos. You know, the people who are killed in Benue State, every day, life is lost in Nigeria. We are all in the same boat. You have to understand that.
But why do you think that after almost 4 decades,
yes,
there's still the cause for Biafra, there's still the agitation for
This
Biafra?
particular cause for Biafra, for me, it was artificial. This particular one was artificial. Because, I mean, all during when it was cozy, when you were in government and enjoying the trappings of government, there was no Biafra. But as soon as Buhari came in, Biafra began. Now, listen, what happened, in my view, because I was following these things on social media, and some of the people who were, you know, stoking these things, you know, they are my friends on social media. Now, when Buhari came in, you know, people, because of the heat of the elections and all the animosity that came up during that elections. Everybody knows how it was. The country was balkanized into the Jonathan. The Jonathan was south. Then even those in the south who supported Buhari were considered sellouts to the north and all that. So the country was balkanized. But what Radio Biafra began to do, and another friend of mine who is in the US, you know, they were doing was to begin to agitate people. You know, for example, as soon as Buhari came in, there was all this thing everywhere that he has sent fighter planes to Calabar to bomb the whole place, to bomb Igbos in Calabar, which was a lie. It didn't happen. You know, so people normally, naturally got upset. You know, when they make an appointment, oh, not an appointment, look at the South, you guys are stupid, your mumu don't all. That is how it started. So people naturally became angry. So when Biafra came, and again, I blame Buhari, because Buhari also forgot that that election had finished, that he was not president of APC, or President of the North. And so he came up with that octopus arithmetic of 97% and 5%, you know, which also added salt to injury. So people became upset. I mean, he couldn't manage the fine lines of ethnic divisions or, you know, so people began to see him as a bigot. And the people who held the short end of the stick of this bigotry were people from the southeast or the south and all that. So they naturally became aggressive towards his government. So I feel that this particular agitation for Biafra is artificial. Now, I also want to say that the world over, when you are agitating for secession, you know, countries have included in their constitutions, you know, procedures that the respective unit of the federation or the union could secede, you know, and courts have said so too, that you can only secede by legal means, you know. But in Nigeria, you don't have those clauses in our constitution. You don't even have a clause for referendum, right? The only reason why Scotland could ask for a referendum is because the law permits it, right? Even Abraham Lincoln said that when the unionists, they wanted to pull out, it could only be done by constitutional amendment, you know. And the Supreme Court of the United States also said in White versus Texas, or Texas versus White, that secession could only come by two ways: either agreement of the federating unit or the confederating unit, or by revolution, you know. So you have the Constitution of Ethiopia. Specifically says if you want to pull apart, this is the procedure. Constitution of France is there. If you want to pull apart, this is the way to do it. St. Kitts and Nevis, they have it. Several countries, Austria, they have it in their constitution.
We saw the narration. First, they said no boycott of elections, banner by elections, and then vocal statements, and then when the military visited his home and their reactions. Now,
the military, we all watched that video. I didn't see the military visit his home at that first instant. They were driving past and people started stoning them and all that. Then the second day or another day, they now went to his home and shot, which is wrong. For me, it was wrong. It's the same thing that happened during El Zakzaki's time, right? And the El Zakzaki incident. They were going and they were blocked. They begged and all that, and people were praising them. The next day, they went in the dead of the night and killed people, which is something I personally condemn. You know, people talk about self-defense and all that. The law is that you defend yourself in the heat of the moment. You don't go back and allow things to cool and then go the next day when nobody is anticipating a fight and kill people. You don't do that. So that was wrong, clearly. That was wrong. But I'm not in a position to know, you know, there's client solicitor's confidentiality. I don't know what he said to his lawyer. But if I were his lawyer, I would say if your agitation is credible, do it through appropriate channel, which is by constitutional amendment. The only way, except for a revolution, the only other way is by constitutional amendment. That's the only other way. You see, even Canada is a union, right? The province of Quebec, they tried to pull apart, but the Supreme Court of Canada said, no, you cannot until you follow the certain procedure. Even Australia, Western Australia tried to do so, but the British Parliament said it has to be, they even had a referendum. British Parliament said a referendum will not even be enough. It has to be by agreement by a majority of the people, you know. So it has to follow a proper legal procedure. It can't be by force of arms. In the Money Laundering Act, there's a provision for the government to freeze accounts that are suspected to be used for terrorist activities. Even in the Terrorism Prevention Act, there's such provisions too. Now, the irony of it is that the argument of people is that you cannot proscribe someone, an organization that is not registered. And so it doesn't have a separate legal identity or a distinct legal identity can proscribe. But the organization now is going to court to go and set aside an order that was given against it, even though it's claiming I'm not a legal entity, but I'm going to court to go and say, how do you do that? How do you reconcile that? You know, I've listened to lawyers talk about these things, and, you know, I had a father who was a very old lawyer, and he used to say to me, pay attention to pay attention to in law, there's what is called the general rule, and then there's called the exceptions. So pay attention to the exceptions. It's the exceptions that make you a brilliant lawyer, not the general rule. Now, in talking about that IPOB is not a legal entity in Nigeria and cannot be proscribed, people have forgotten. I've listened to lawyers, brilliant lawyers who've made this argument, but they have forgotten that there are exceptions to these things. You know, the law, the exception, I'll give you like 3 exceptions. Why I think that the government can properly, you know, go to court and proscribe them, even though they're not registered in Nigeria. The law is that, very simply stated, that one of the exceptions to that rule is that if that organization is registered in any other country, it has a legal identity. It can be sued in Nigeria. It can sue and be sued in Nigeria. And that's what the Supreme Court said in Bank of Baroda versus Iyalabani. That's a 2002 Supreme Court decision. Even in Thomas versus Local Government Service Board, and that's a 1965 decision, the Supreme Court said the same thing, that the fact that you're not registered in Nigeria doesn't mean that you cannot be sued and you cannot sue. If you're registered anywhere and the law of that country recognizes you as a distinct entity, you can be sued in Nigeria. That's number one. Number two, there are statutes. The law is that if even organizations that cannot ordinarily be sued in their own distinct identity, you know, because they are not registered. But there's a statute that permits such suits. They can be sued. And that was what the Supreme Court again held in Ike Medical Merchandise versus Pfizer. For example, partnerships. Partnerships don't have their distinct legal identities, but the rules of court allow you to sue partnerships in their name. Now, in the Public Order Act, Section 6, they said, if any association, whether registered or not, does a particular thing, it's committed an offense and is guilty of an offense. You cannot be guilty of an offense until you are a person, you know. So, but he said whether you're registered or not, you are guilty of an offense, you know. And it includes some of the things that IPOB has done in that Section 6 of the Public Order Act. Some people will argue, oh, in the case of IGP versus ANPP, the Court of Appeal said that Public Order Act has been struck down. Public Order Act has been unconstitutional, but that is not true. What the Court of Appeal said simply in that case was that Section 1 to Section 4 alone, that was the sections that were dealt with, were unconstitutional. But even then, 2 years before that, you had the Chukwuma and COP that held, and lawyers don't even talk about this. When they're talking about IGP for NB, they don't talk about Chukwuma. That decision of the Court of Appeal, also the Court of Appeal held that that law was lawful, you know. So you had these two conflicting decisions and all that. But the point I'm trying to make in referencing is that law has said whether you're registered or not, you could be treated as a juristic person for the purpose of being guilty of an offense, right? And then, you know, so in my opinion, if IPOB is registered, you know, they can be proscribed in Nigeria as a distinct, as long as the laws of the country they have been registered recognizes them as a distinct entity in that country. Yeah.